Yo, what is up, guys? It's Cohen back here again tonight with another episode of After the Buzzer, where I recap all the NBA games and storylines from today. A lot of good games, particularly Bucks Nets was one of the best games of the entire season. A potential Eastern Conference Finals / second round matchup preview, depending on where those two teams finish in the standings. The 76ers did jump out and take a one full game lead over the Nets for that one seed in an overtime win against the San Antonio Spurs, led by a Ben Simmons game winner, which is, pretty cool to see for Ben Simmons. But the main game I do want to talk about to start the video is Lakers Raptors. Particularly, I want to talk about the Lakers, a team that a lot of people, including myself, considered the favorites to win the championship coming into this season. Now, that was also before the Nets trade for James Harden, and that kind of shifted a lot of people's perspectives. But coming into the season, the Lakers were the favorites in a lot of people's eyes. I would easily say most people, due to their offseason acquisitions and the fact that they're led by LeBron James, Anthony Davis, coming off of a finals victory over the Miami Heat, coming out of the bubble. Sure, they were on short rest, but this team just seemed like to be the most talented and most well put together team. Add in the fact that they have two, coming out of last season, probably top 5 players. It seemed like they were going to win the finals, or at least they were a worthy favorite. However, at this point in the season, Anthony Davis and LeBron James are both coming off of pretty big injuries, missing a lot of time. And right now, the Lakers are 1-7 in their last 8 games, and they're currently tied for the 7th seed. If the season ended today, the Los Angeles Lakers are in the play-in game, which is a scary thought for the Lakers because 2 losses in that playing game, you're out of the playoffs. And while I don't expect LeBron James and Anthony Davis to lose 2 straight games in that type of scenario, if they're not fully healthy, that's a completely different story, which is something that it seems like they really aren't. If you watch the Lakers-Raptors game tonight, which the Raptors won by 7 points, it wasn't just the Lakers not playing well. The Raptors were playing really, really well on their side of the ball. I'm going to start off by giving them a shout out. Kyle Lowry, 37, 2, and 11. This was a masterclass from Kyle Lowry. Every time he shot, it felt like the ball was going in. He was really just dissecting the Lakers defense. Nothing they could do could stop him. And that's one of the main things I want to talk about is the Lakers defense, because it was terrible tonight. It looked like no one wanted to play on the defensive end of the ball, and that was also shown by Pascal Siakam putting up 39, 13, and 4. And they were both very efficient in putting up those numbers. There was no resistance at all. They could attack the basket. They could get pretty much any shot that they wanted to. And that does partially come from the fact that they're missing Dennis Schroeder, who is a good guard defender, who could have helped to guard Kyle Lowry, but at the same time, Alex Caruso is no slouch. He is a solid defender. He just could not stop Kyle Lowry tonight. You also have to think about the fact that LeBron James did leave this game with about 7 minutes left with ankle soreness in the ankle that he has been out for with for a long period of time. So that is something you have to consider. But I don't think any of that mattered. The Lakers were not going to win this game. The Raptors were just too on fire, and even though it was a 7-point margin of victory for the Raptors, it was not that close. This game was not that close. It was a 20-point deficit at some point in the game. The Lakers just didn't look like they wanted to play tonight. Like I said, there was no effort on the defensive side of the ball. And some of their decisions really confuse me. Obviously, LeBron and AD don't quite look healthy, but you have guys like Andre Drummond who are healthy, and Drummond was not good on defense. He never really has been a great defender, but this game he really, really struggled. And it makes me think, why isn't Marc Gasol playing more? I know Marc Gasol has not been having a great season, but he's better than the way that Andre Drummond's been playing defensively. In these times where you just need to get a stop or you just can't stop the Raptors, putting a guy out there like a Marc Gasol could help that you figure that out. Not only has he played with those guys before, so he kind of has some intel on them, but he's a former defensive player of the year. Even if he's older, he still has those defensive fundamentals and he can help a little bit. There were a lot of times where Andre Drummond dropped way too far back under the basket. Raptors players were shooting floaters all day because Andre Drummond would drop almost completely under the basket in coverage on the roll. He was just letting them get to that spot, and they were just drilling floaters all the time. Players had to overcommit to that roll, leaving shooters open because Drummond was not stepping up on them. He's got to be better for this Lakers team, especially if they're going to keep starting him. He's got to be better. And I think he just is not playing the role that I want him to, or that I think he should. Drummond needs to be catching lobs, grabbing rebounds, and playing decent defense. That's all he has to do. There were way too many times in this game where they tried to get him involved offensively, or he tried to get himself involved offensively. Drummond should be catching lobs and getting like low post looks at most. He took guys off the dribble from the free throw line tonight. And I know that's something he's been doing, and it's something that frustrated both Cavaliers and Pistons fans in the past. But I was hoping that when he got to the Lakers, especially when Anthony Davis and LeBron James came back, he would realize, okay, this is not my role. I need to play my role, because I think ultimately the pathway to Andre Drummond being seen as a valuable player again is him winning a championship and being part of something bigger than himself. Drummond putting up empty stats or putting up stats isn't going to change anything. Drummond's been putting up stats for a while, but the current perception of Andre Drummond is that he's not an impactful player. He doesn't lead to winning basketball, and when he has games like this, it shows why people think that way. If he wants to try and secure a long-term contract and stay in the NBA for a long time, he's got to show that he can be a winning player, and I think that means buying more into the role than he has been buying in. If you just look at his stats, 19 and 11, that looks like a good stat line. But if you watched him in the game, it was not that productive. And he had a lot of plays, a lot of possessions, where it just looked like he was kind of just taking time off. Outside of him, Anthony Davis has not looked good since coming back from his injury, and that's understandable. He was out with a pretty long-term injury, and he just doesn't look quite comfortable yet, and I think him and LeBron James' health is going to come along, and ultimately the Lakers are going to be okay, and they're going to still be a really, really good team come playoff time. The problem is, in that time leading up to the playoffs, they're missing out on time for Anthony Davis and LeBron James to get back in a rhythm, and they're missing out on time to catch up in the standings. You don't want to be in that play-in tournament. You don't want any extra games, especially for a Lakers team that is already coming off a really short offseason playing in the NBA Finals just a few months before the new season started. The Lakers look gassed, and I don't know if that is because of the bubble where they only got a very short offseason, like I said, a couple months, or if that's because of the really tough, repetitive schedule that the current NBA season has had. A lot of teams playing a lot of games in very few nights. Is that why the Lakers are tired, or is it because of the bubble thing, or is it a combination of both? I don't know. But they look tired. They look like they really did not want to give a lot of effort tonight. Probably the Lakers most like the guy who put in the most effort tonight was Kyle Kuzma, who was having a pretty good season. 24 points tonight, 3 rebounds. Kuzma had a good game. Kuzma's been pretty solid defensively this season. He's been putting up some good numbers. He's been somewhat efficient. He's doing what he needs to do. He's playing his role, which is what Andre Drummond needs to commit to. I think he ultimately can be the X factor for this Lakers team if he commits to a role. And ultimately, that's got to be the goal for the Lakers. They got to get him and other guys buying into what they need to do. And I think Gasol needs to be reestablished in this rotation. You can have a 3-center rotation out there. You can, like I said when they picked up Drummond, I thought that the reason picking up Drummond could help them is because it gave them 3 bigs for 3 separate situations. If you need a board, you can put in Andre Drummond. If you need scoring, you put in Montrezl Harrell. If you need defense, you can put in Marc Gasol. However, they're trying to use Andre Drummond as a guy who does all of those things, and that's not his game. His game should be grabbing rebounds and being a physical presence. That's all he's got to do. He's just trying to do too much. And ultimately, the question of the video is, should we be worried about the Lakers? I think it's a little too early to think that the Lakers are washed or that this team is falling apart or anything, but I do think there's plenty of room to worry. Like I said, injuries are piling up. There is wear and tear. We don't see wear and tear like this for LeBron James. Anthony Davis has sustained several injuries over the course of his career, but LeBron James, it's rare to see him look this off in terms of injury. And he is getting old. He's 36 years old, so it's not out of the question that his body's just continuing to deteriorate, and a big injury like that can really set him back. And when it's been a repetitive schedule, when they're coming off of a finals run just a few months ago, this Lakers team's got to be gassed. We've seen it also with the Celtics and the Heat, even the Nuggets a little bit, who are playing a little bit better than those other 2 and 3 teams. But the Nuggets have had some wear and tear too. Will Barton's out for a while. Jamal Murray, we know what happened to him. Other guys have missed a bunch of time. The Nuggets have had some games where they're severely injured. And I think that ultimately those 4 teams that really played a long time into the bubble are really feeling the wear and tear of this season. Not only because of the very fast-paced, rapid schedule, but because of that little time they had in the offseason. So, are the Lakers going to be okay? Yeah, I think they're going to be okay in terms of they're still going to be a really good team. But if you're the 7 seed and you have to go into a first-round matchup against the Suns or the Jazz and you're not fully healthy, the Lakers aren't getting out of the first round. I don't think they are. If they're healthy, yeah, they can definitely do that. They're the reigning champions for a reason, but you don't want to go through the playoffs with, especially after, like I said, a very long and hard season. You don't want to have to go through with no home court advantage, having to play potentially a play-in game or 2, playing on the road to start every single series. You don't want that. You want the easiest path possible if you're the Los Angeles Lakers, and that's way out of the question now. They're not going to get a top 4 seed at this point. They would have to really rack up some wins here, which is possible for the Lakers, but I don't see it happening. I think the Lakers are going to end up as like the 6th seed, and that leads you to having to play I like a really tough Denver Nuggets team in the first round or the Clippers in the first round. And if you win that series, then you play the Suns or the Jazz. And if you win that series, you probably play either of the Suns or the Jazz, or maybe even the Clippers if you miss them in the last round. That is a really, really hard 3 series, and I don't know if the Lakers can pull it off. There's just a lot of wear and tear. They've got to be better. They have to be if they want to repeat as champions. It's difficult to repeat as champions, especially in the circumstances that they've experienced. If they do it, that'll be incredible. I'll be really impressed. But as of right now, I don't know if it's going to happen. So that's my thought on the Lakers. The Raptors do deserve a lot of credit. They played really well this game. We'll see what happens with the Lakers. Other games I can talk about. Like I mentioned, the Sixers Spurs went into overtime. It probably shouldn't have. The Sixers should have won this game in regulation. It probably should have even been a blowout. Spurs missing several key starters, key players in general, and they fought hard. Rudy Gay hits a layup to send it to overtime because the Sixers can't convert on the other end to get a game winner. Joel Embiid took like a really tough fading shot. I can't imagine that's the shot they were going for, but it ended up working out in overtime where Joel Embiid took another really tough fadeaway shot, which is understandable because those are shots he's been hitting all season. But Ben Simmons got a putback layup to give the Sixers the 2-point win at the buzzer. Big win for them. Good teams win bad games. And now, like I said, they have a full game up on the Nets. That's going to be a critical spot to get. They need to get that 1 seed. They have to make the Nets play the Bucks in that second round if they want a shot or if they want to improve their odds at winning the Eastern Conference. And we can tell it's going to be a fight if the Bucks and the Nets have to play in that second round, as was seen by today's game between them, which I'm now going to talk about for a good bit because this was a really good game. If you missed out on this one, you missed out on one of the best games of the season. Kevin Durant, 42, 10, and 2. Kyrie Irving, not very efficient, but 27 and 6, still decent game. Giannis, player of the game, 49, 8, and 4. His high of the season. Chris Middleton had a really good game too with 26, 11, and 6. Probably the play of the game for me in this one was the fact that Giannis, Kevin Durant tried to take him off the dribble and shot a pull-up mid-range jumper, which, Kevin Durant hits all the time, but Giannis blocked it. I don't think I've ever seen someone block a Kevin Durant mid-range jumper like face up. Like I know Russ earlier this season blocked Kevin Durant from behind. Like he shot the mid-range jumper and Russ just flew in from behind him, knocked out of his hands. But I don't know if I've ever seen, or I can't remember the last time I've seen someone blocking Kevin Durant in like a face-up situation. It blew my mind, and it shows why he is a 2-time Defensive Player of the Year. He had some great matchups. I wish they put him on Kevin Durant earlier, to be honest. They had Chris Middleton on Durant a lot, and he was just kind of fouling him a lot. Kevin Durant is just too tall for Chris Middleton. Chris Middleton is a good defender, but Kevin Durant just has that height. It's an unfair mismatch in terms of physicality and in terms of the body type. So I think Giannis is the better fit. Of course, that does leave situations where you might have a bigger player that Chris Middleton then has to guard. Giannis spent a lot of time guarding Blake Griffin in this game, who is also bigger than Chris Middleton, but I think Chris Middleton stands a better chance against Blake Griffin than Kevin Durant. So I would kind of like to see more of those situations. Additionally, I want to see more of Giannis at center. They closed this game with Giannis at center. No hate to Brook Lopez, but he was not good tonight. 4.6 rebounds. That was Brook Lopez's numbers in 25 minutes of play. Giannis has to play center more. Their closing lineup was Drew Holiday, Dante DiVincenzo, Chris Middleton, PJ Tucker, and Giannis at the 5. That should be their closing lineup. That was really good. Did they have great late game execution? No, but they also, at the same time, locked up on the defensive end of the ball. Because when you put PJ Tucker out there, it gives you a better option. If Brook Lopez gets switched on a Kevin Durant or like a Kyrie Irving, he's cooked. But if you have a lineup out there with Giannis, Chris Middleton, Drew Holiday, Dante DiVincenzo, and PJ Tucker, that 5-man lineup can switch on anything. And when you have a team that can create mismatches as easily as the Brooklyn Nets can, especially if James Harden is out on the floor, which he wasn't today, I don't think he's going to be back to the playoffs, which adds another wrinkle to this. But if you have James Harden out there on the floor, him, Kyrie, and Kevin Durant can create a mismatch with one screen. If DeAndre Jordan or whoever is out there at center sets one hard screen, you could have Brook Lopez on Kyrie Irving or James Harden, and that is impossible to stop. Brook Lopez isn't going to do anything. He's just not quick enough on his feet. But if you put Giannis out there, even though he's slower, he has the length. Chris Middleton is quick enough and he has enough length to try and keep up. Drew Holiday's a great defender. DiVincenzo's a solid defender, and we've seen what PJ Tucker can do. So that should be their closing 5-man lineup. I really like that lineup out there, and I think they have to play it more, especially against a Nets team that traditionally doesn't play a center a lot of the time. They have Nick Claxton, they have DeAndre Jordan, but today they went with Blake Griffin in the closing lineup as their center, which I think is something they're going to do a lot as we head into the playoffs. I think that seems to be one of their best lineups, a lineup with Kyrie Irving, Joe Harris, James Harden, Kevin Durant, and Blake Griffin. That seems like that has the potential to be their best lineup most nights. And I mean, it was working for a little bit. They fought back hard, but the Bucks just ended up taking this win. Kevin Durant had a fadeaway mid-range fadeaway three from the top of the key to try and win it at the buzzer. But PJ Tucker got really physical with him on the inbound. He didn't foul him or anything, but he kind of bumped him a little bit, which forced him to take a tough shot. And that ended up being a pretty big moment for the game, because if Kevin Durant sinks that and sends it to overtime, it felt like momentum was kind of going the Nets' way a little bit. And I'm not sure if the Bucks would have closed it out. But getting that stop helps out a lot. It shows why they picked up a guy like PJ Tucker. He has a ton of experience defending a guy like Kevin Durant. You can put a solid defender on him, but a guy like PJ Tucker, even if he doesn't quite have the height, he knows how to get Durant a little bit off. He knows how to really get in players' faces, be physical with them. And when the game turns really physical in the playoffs, you need players like that. I think PJ Tucker was a really good addition. He's not going to put up a lot of stats. Like, he had 3, 2, and 2, but just on that last possession, he proved his value in the game. And that's really all you need to do. You just need to be there and be big in those clutch moments. And that's what he was. So that's my thoughts from this game. Hope James Harden gets healthy soon. I hope he's healthy for the playoffs. Like I said, monster game from Kevin Durant. He just didn't quite have the help tonight. Jrue Holiday put on a clinic. Has to be all defensive team. He did a fantastic job of guarding Kyrie Irving, one of the most difficult players in the entire NBA to guard. Shout out to Jrue Holiday. Big acquisition as well. And the Bucks are scary. I know the Nets didn't have James Harden tonight, but I want to see a series. I am dying to see a 7-game series of that. Other games I'm going to talk about. Let's see. I'm not really going to talk about the Heat Hornets game, because I think I'm going to drop a full video on the Charlotte Hornets tomorrow, so be on the lookout for that. I think that's what I'm going to do tomorrow for tomorrow's video. I guess we can talk about Suns Thunder a little bit. As a Thunder fan, this was a really good game for us, only losing by 3 points to the Suns after losing by 57 just yesterday. And it really shows how impactful of a player Lou Dort is, as well as Ty Jerome, two guys who played great tonight. Lou Dort wasn't very efficient, but he played some great defense. He made Devin Booker take some tough shots. Of course, Devin Booker still hits tough shots, and he had a really good game against us as well. But I think he had like 30 through 3 quarters. But the Thunder fought back hard, and I'm really proud of the way that they turned things around, coming off, like I said, the largest home loss in NBA history to lose by only 3 points to, now with the Suns win, the number 1 seed in the Western Conference. That's a big accomplishment. I'm really proud of the way that this team fought back. It shows that even though this team isn't really good, they have a lot of fight in them, and I think that's something that bodes really well for the future. A lot of tanking teams feel like they kind of just give up at some point, but this Thunder team is fighting night in, night out, and they want to win every single night, even if they don't win like at all. They won once in the past like 20 games or so. They still fight, and I'm really proud of them for the way they fought. Darius Bazley had a really good game. I think he's going to be big for our future. Like I mentioned, Ty Jerome had a really good game as well. Shout out to him for posting one of my tweets about him on his Instagram story. I also think he changed his profile picture to the picture of him I used in my tweet, which is also pretty cool. But shout out to Ty Jerome, UVA legend, future Thunder legend, a great combo guard. He has insane range, and I've been starting, if you haven't checked me out on Twitter, at 3_Cone on Twitter. I've really been starting the Ty Jerome to the 2022 3-point contest campaign, so go look out for that. But that's my thoughts on the game. Shout out to the Suns. They're just really good. Chris Paul hit so many tough shots. DeAndre Ayton had a really good game. They were without Jay Crowder tonight, and it didn't really end up mattering. Like I said, it did kind of get close, but this was a blowout for most of the night. It just kind of got close at the end, which I'm proud of the Thunder for doing. So I think that's all I'm going to talk about for this video. The Knicks winning by an insane margin, 25 points. Julius Randle is easily the most improved player. It's not even a conversation. Trailblazers-Celtics game. Trailblazers winning by 10 points over the Boston Celtics. Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum bumped knees on a play, and they both kind of hobbled off. I really hope they're both okay, because that would be a devastating injury for the Celtics and for both of them. So I'm hoping they're both okay. I haven't checked Twitter enough to see exactly what the status update is. Praying that they're okay. Big win for the Blazers. They need this one, keeping pace with the Mavericks, and the fact that the Lakers lost. This helps them climb up, because they're now tied with the Lakers for seeding, and they don't want to be in that play-in tournament. You don't want to face LeBron James or Steph Curry in the play-in tournament, so you want to try and get out of there. Kings beating the Mavericks by 12 points without De'Aaron Fox. They're playing well without De'Aaron Fox. Shout out to them. The Kings just have the Mavs number for some reason. I don't know why. And the Heat winning by 10 points against the Charlotte Hornets. So that's all your games for today. Let me know what you thought of the games. What were your takeaways? What do you think about the Lakers? Are they in trouble? What do you think about the Bucks-Nets game? Was that your game of the year? Do you want to see a series of that? And if there is a series of that, who wins? How many games? With that being said, I will see you guys later. Everyone say bye.